My name actually is Rosenthal, or Cube 3, and I was called in to moderate at the last minute because MacArthur was lost somewhere in cyberspace. So I'll be moderating the panel, which is officially called Innovating in VR, AR, Immersive Production, The Amazing Journey of Imagination, Gear, and Innovation. The hell does that mean?
A lot of things.
Victor loves these titles. So there you go. So thank you and good night. So what we have here is a really interesting panel with lots of different areas and expertise in VR and called AR, immersive media. So we're going to have an interesting conversation. We've got an hour, so we're not all going to fight over slide projectors and Oculus is not working and trying to do presentation stuff. So what we do is we'll do a conversation, let these guys all beat the crap out of each other, and then we'll take the last, 15 minutes. We'll try and someone say stop, if not me, and then you guys can come and ask questions and beat the crap out of the panel. And I think that'll work. Just so quickly, I've been doing VR and AR for about 25 years. I used to run a lot of the panels here before anybody really cared. I founded a couple of Vermal SIGs over the years in New York and LA and San Francisco. So I've just been doing this stuff forever. So all the new stuff doesn't, when they say it's new, I kind of wink and laugh. And of course, most of you who flew here or flew on an aircraft that was probably designed using 3D printing and VR 20 years ago at Boeing. So nothing's new. So I'm going to now let the panel introduce themselves one by one, and then we'll take it from there. So when we start here with Ryan, and say hello.
All right. Well, good job, everyone. I mean, you made it. This is the last of the last. So my name is Ryan Moore. I'm the CEO and founder of Experience 360. We're a cinematic 360 video production company and experience design studio based out of Burbank. We're really looking to find ways to integrate VR directly into productions and AR, find ways to change the plot with AR elements and different virtual elements. So it's been a lot of fun. We've been operating since 2015 and have worked with BET, Disney, and had opportunities to collaborate with a number of other awesome virtual reality studios that exist here in Los Angeles. So really excited to be hanging out with all these awesome people.
Very cool. Hi, Daniel Kenyon. I'm with Furious M, CEO, founder. We're a production consulting company focused in the VR space. One of our first projects, we were lucky enough to get partnered up with the Defrost team by Randall Kleiser and produced by Tana Frederick. And this episodic story, has helped us learn a lot about how the world perceives VR. We've taken that story, at least the first episode's literally around the world now, starting at Sundance, going to Cannes, and then finishing up late last year in Xi'an, China. So we've had a lot of experience viewing people view. And one of the ways we got to do that was to work with a sync box provided by 2-Bit Circus. So it was very awesome to get that. We were actually flying around with a bunch of Samsungs in a box in China when the Samsungs started flaming up. So that's our little story, because we had to go back and go through security. It was quite fun and expensive. Anyway, we are very focused on the research aspects of the neuroscience of VR, and we're actually engaged in studies with Cognitive Neuroscience Institute in Switzerland and ongoing data collection about perception and cognitive things that go on in the mind, essentially brain science and perception. So that finally we do some work in China that is focused on not using HMDs. So we have our work cut out for us right now, and how to do VR, AR, mixed reality without HMDs. We're going to learn. So anyway.
My name is Karam. I am the founder of VRTO and the 5 Rs Festival of International Virtual and Augmented Reality Stories. I was an actor for 25 years. I have a degree in cinematography at UCLA, studied with Werner Herzog, who's very punk rock and very fast at making things and sort of fearlessly at that. And he's unafraid to rip anything apart and figure out what else there is to it and get to the truth. And so he taught me a lot. And I also am the editor of Indie Game Reviewer since 2007 and watched games go from 8-bit beboop kind of stuff to extremely complex, very personal stories that were being made by single mothers, cancer patients, transgendered children, 11-year-old, 12-year-olds telling stories, pushing the medium in every way that they could. And all of those things kind of converged when the flashpoint started happening around 2013 and 14. I had a choice whether to go into production or to create a platform to make the conversation as heightened as possible and not let anybody rest on their laurels. And so I opted for that. And I've spent 3 years building a forum, I think, that challenges people and hopefully brings all the hotheads together to figure out what else we can do before we settle down to the bottom of the tank.
What a concept.
And these are all friends that I've made over the last couple of years. I think all of these people are incredible, and we're all growing day by day in terms of the conversation and the grammar. I think that's the value of this panel, so I'm glad you guys are here.
Thanks, Karen. So my name is Louis Cacciutolo. I'm the CEO and founder of Room. Room is a media platform, a curated news digital platform about everything related to augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. When we are going now into growing into a distribution platform of online distribution of VR content and also location-based. We are building a location-based network for VR experiences. We are kind of very global because our platform is in 3 languages, in English, in French, and in Chinese. And we are addressing actually 3 continents, and our audience is coming evenly from 3 different continents. As a background, personal background, I'm a musician. I own a theater in southern France, and I'm very much into live performance, which is one of the reasons why I'm particularly interested in VR. Maybe when we will talk about this later, that might make more sense to you. And I'm also a filmmaker. I used to work for THX in San Francisco, and that's it.
Hello. Hi, I'm Marco Rosado, and I am the co-founder and creative director of Mode Select, which is based in Santa Monica here in LA. We are a motion graphics, post-production house. We do all kinds of work for Disney, Viacom, and other studios. And as opposed to a lot of people here, I don't know for sure, but we're trying to we're the other end of the stick. Aside from research, we're not really researching VR. We're trying to just trying to implement it and explain it to other consumers and other vendors and all that. We basically have a stable of clients, and we've been giving them the same product. You need a commercial, you need to promote your movie or TV show. And what we're trying to do now is we want to introduce VR to these clients, and how do we do this without betraying their trust? Because some clients don't understand it, and
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Let's get the name. We'll dive right in. Trust me.
Okay. Yeah. So
question 2. So
that's basically our angle right now, and it's the $1 million question: who's going to crack that nut? So.
I'm Jake Sally. I work at 2-Bit Circus, which is a merry band of engineers and carnies from SpaceX to Burning Man that is taking our traveling carnival of the future concept and making it a location-based entertainment here in Los Angeles. Everything from arena scale VR to motion platforms. We like to push the boundaries, and we'll get more into that The end.
Definitely so. Actually, now, here's the time to pay attention. So actually, prior to the panel up here right now, we did some little emails back and forth, deciding to do a discussion versus a slideshow type thing. And I took all the questions and ideas that people had and kind of mushed them together into basically the 4 questions. So now we'll have a quick Seder. And okay. So I'm going to start with why should we consider this VR, AR thing a new medium? Basically, what's this big deal? Why isn't this stuff just 3D TV, Cinerama, the shocker, every other gimmick that Hollywood and technologists have given us for over 50 years? So what is it really about this that maybe can make it that's a medium people are talking about versus, just another gimmick to give glasses and get people sitting down somewhere to buy Pepsi and popcorn? Go for it.
I'm going to take it. I say this all the time. We have a festival of not storytelling, but of virtual and augmented reality stories, which I think is an important distinction, actually. Working in the indie game space, there's a lot of modders, the machinima movement and whatever. They were trying to storify basically gameplay, and then eventually the gameplay came out of the picture, and it was just environments. And then you'd see those sort of these like terrain forming jams where people would say you've got 15 minutes to create an entire landscape. And I thought that the velocity of that creation was really interesting because you'd get a fingerprint from that person in how they perceived a forest or a jungle or a river or whatever. And you could start to unpack that that fingerprint, that spirit, that soul of that person, and just by being in a space. And I think this is a spatialized medium.
Spatialized medium.
Yeah, I mean, we went and we did this thing at the 14th Factory where we brought Liz McGrath, who does little tiny punk rock dioramas inside of dioramas. And then we had Simon Birch, who's doing 150,000 foot art installation, and then we put some VR people beside them and said, "What is this all about? Like, how do you work in a difficult medium like marble or granite or VR, and what does space mean to all of that?" So I think that what's being underutilized or underconsidered is that this is a medium about your sense of presence in a space and how you unpack that space. And that you don't have to have an agenda necessarily inside of that beyond what you bring to it and what you infer from it. I think there's a matter of inception too. I think that the brain and the way that the mind works is to just give you cues that allow the brain to kind of fill in a lot of those blanks. And there's a different kind of a dance with this medium, I think, than the other media where the very reason that TV didn't go away or isn't going to die over the top is because sometimes you just want to be on the couch and be programmed at just for hours on end, like while you fall asleep and you eat stuff and you wake up and you fall asleep and whatever. You just want it to come at you. You don't want to have to decide. So there's something about this medium that I think is endemic to just a spatialized, constructed medium that we should be considering more. And you can take stories from that, So I'll just leave it there for now. But
It's also probably the very first medium that really tries to completely trick the viewer's senses in a way that we've never tried to do before. I mean, radio and music stimulates the auditory senses, and then video and motion pictures stimulate the visual senses, but never have we cut off the senses completely to the outside world in a way that virtual reality and 360 head-mounted displays allow you to do, really. And this is allowing content creators to treat the viewer as an isolated individual. I mean, the reason why so many horror pieces are so powerful is because you completely forget that there's anyone else in the room while you're watching it. It's just you and the monster, or you and the character, and that's something that has never, ever, ever been done. Disney has played around with kind of the surround vision and played with panoramic video, but we've never, ever been in that place where we can feel like we're in the space and gain the agency that was just spoken about. It's really powerful.
Yeah, if I were to add to that, I think one of the challenges between, to not let VR fall into the gimmick area is, it's hard to, 95% of people that in our experience, testing and seeing audiences going to exhibits and all that, they can't be in VR for more than 15, 30 minutes. And as opposed to like on TV, like you can just sit down and watch TV for 3 hours, or listen to the radio for a whole day. So that barrier, like how do we make it comfortable, and how do we make it not like something that you could just use and forget about it, as opposed to kind of like I guess the part of it is the hardware, of course, but there's other things there that make the viewer or the person experiencing it uncomfortable. And yeah, that's one of the challenges.
I think really for me, the word new, apparently VR was first conceptualized in the early 1960s. It's potential that some sort of simulations were created for flight navigators in the 1930s. The concept of creating these virtualized environments or realities, maybe it takes 100 years because this is a very hard technology to master. Maybe 3D was just the first attempt at this. Maybe all of these other things, including social media, are just the building blocks to the next generation of how we interface with machines. And in that sense, I watched from the days before there were such things as PCs or laptop computers. They gained their own value through utilization, and I think that VR and AR is going to have the same thing. It won't be a flash in the pan simply because companies and people are going to use it for the betterment of society, and that's why VR and AR will become profoundly important as we move forward.
Well, actually, I think that VR is a very unique media platform because it's the first media platform that allows you to visit it. You're not only like an audience, a passive audience or an active audience, you're actually a visitor. And that's how I define the people who are actually using VR and who have VR experiences. You're a visitor, whatever you're doing, like you visit this world that is created for you. You could just happen to be a visitor by mistake, or you get lost in VR, like you can get lost in a labyrinth, or you're a tourist and you'll just explore and you'll just have a passive experience, or you're an intruder, or you're an invader. You can be any type of visitor, but that's why VR is actually very unique.
Well, I'll cap a little and move on to the next question. My iPad allows this, but I just want to say that yes, it sounds a lot like life is what you're talking about, or the universe, which is the way I've always kind of looked at it. Is that we were either born into nature or God's universe. Choose your own. But now we're really kind of building our own mediaverse in a sense for the first time, whereas television, film, and others were all augmentations in a sense within the universe. VR is, as I say, the first attempts now to really build a universe or out of media, mediated, all by man, to go live in, which will get us to the next question, actually, which won't come up here, but I know what it is, so we're going to move forward quickly. Okay, so VR adoption, the big question, the money, the selling, the marketing of VR. Where's the money? Where's the beef? Here we've got panels on a lot of different things here. The good, the bad, the ugly. What have you seen in terms of mass adoption, marketing, and or attempts at marketing, and also the when? In other words, we've had now, I guess, let's call 2014 some magic number. Okay, it's now 2017, and other magic numbers have been spent. So you've all been around through that time frame, I know, because I read the blogs. So the good and the bad, ugly, and what do you think will help further mass adoption if what we are looking at is mass adoption as the goal?
I think a big part of that is going to be definitely location-based entertainment, and it provides that sample for the average consumer to try out the content, try out the headsets, get a better understanding of what they are potentially going to be investing thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in. And again, have someone there that's hand-holding you, telling you this is how the headset works, this is what it means when there's 6 degrees of freedom, this is what it means when you have no agency in that space. So that, I think, is going to be one of the most pivotal components of it. I think another bit of that is also going to be, it goes far beyond entertainment. And entertainment is a very small subset of what is going to make virtual and augmented reality mainstream and commercially viable. A lot of that's going to come out of the utility value that it provides to increase productivity in a very wide range of sectors. Medicine, I mean, we can go on and on, but this group knows much more about those sectors than I do.
But he disagrees. No.
I won't disagree with Jake because Jake has got it on lock for that stuff. But I will say that one of the most underrated and under-discussed sectors is web VR. I mean, I don't know why people don't talk about it more, because it's free. You can create it tonight in Janus VR. It's like a few lines of HTML code. I mean, it's the equivalent of a few lines of HTML code. You can drop in 1080p spheres that you can fly in and out of. You can run the entire sort of meshnet server off of a $12 Wi-Fi stick and create a dark web of a metaverse that you can just portal your way through anything in there and run it on Chrome. So and you can do that for free. You can put on a Hamido or a cardboard or whatever you want. And I mean, do you remember when we started moving from GeoCities and walking the streets and saying, hey, does your business need a website? I mean, we can now do that in VR instantly and create these places.
Back then too, but we weren't.
Yeah, of course you could. I mean, the whole Vermal thing. I mean, but you know, the other thing is, I wanted to sort of just talk about. Well, I'll get to that
It's
later.
about marketing. It's what I'm asking a question about.
Yeah.
In other words, this isn't, this is the selling. This is the marketing.
Right, the selling.
You're communicating a thought. I mean, literally 20 years ago, you could do exactly what you just said with web VR.
Right.
It was called VRML. It's what paid my ticket to get out of here from New York. It's what,
There are 3 companies up here that are dedicated, not exclusively, but they're focused on localization, like local access. And the accessibility of consumers to VR is step 1. And we've kind of found this at festivals. People are a little bit tentative about it, but making it more accessible, like 2-Bit Circus and certainly with Vroom and VRTO and Fibers, and making these things approachable and letting people come and try it and do all that is the best form of marketing right now. Social media is going to be a driver of that, but unless people understand where you need them to go, it's hard to get people to go there.
Yeah, I mean, web VR's adoption, that's the answer to that question. But if you're talking about people sitting down and paying for it and how that's working out.
Well, we've had also a year of Samsung and, old men on street corners seeing hip kids and then getting something placed on their face and they're staring up and, how many beards, open mouths, and goggles have we seen? I mean, this is all the selling and marketing, coming from some of the major drivers. And of course, so I'm just asking, there's still a when question. I mean, of course, Sony has VR. I mean, I guess also I'm asking is, what do you think really has seen that works, and what do you think that maybe hasn't worked? Because why not give other people a chance to make it work better for everybody?
Well, actually, I think there is no when. When is now, because there is already, I mean, there are so many industries already like using VR every day. Right. And they have to. I mean, like aerospace or this kind of health, these kind of industries. And so it's already there. And there is money there.
Right, well, that's what I said before. We all came here flying on airplanes that were designed. I guess I was looking at the consumer market. In other words, the dream that drives this digital Hollywood. I was doing VR panels here a decade ago with Tony Parisi and Neil Trevitt and Web VR. The audiences were all in the same audience, smaller, less zeros. So the dream that's going on right now. And the dreams are sold through marketing and selling. And what you think that's good, what you think that's bad. Because again, that's what I think there was some. This comes from the winter question of, we are the winter of, that floated in our emails.
It could be, but if you search on VR in China right now, up comes a lot of adult content, and that's certainly a driver in Asia. It probably will become so in the United States at some point. It's certainly a driver in Eastern Europe and Russia, so there's that.
There's a global consideration.
Well, there's also 8,000 internet cafes that are going to also become VR cafes in China. Just because we don't see it here doesn't mean it's not happening around the world, which it is.
Great point.
And platforms are really, really starting to hop on 360 video. I mean, entertainment is going to be the thing that moves VR headsets the quickest initially until we find kind of a killer app utility or killer app for medicine or I mean 2-bit. 2-bit's actually probably doing the biggest thing right now of just trying to get as many people into a headset and educated.
Right.
And really that's all entertainment and games. And just this morning, I saw on Facebook my very first Hulu 360 ad. So it's coming. It's coming. Hulu's going to adopt it more. Netflix is going to adopt it more. And premium curated content, sorry, little star, is going to continue to get more and more and more popular with the already established platforms.
We
One thing
also,
that
we also need headset sanitation that is effective.
yes.
Before anything else, I think that it is a huge component of it.
You got some?
Yeah,
and then I'll jump to
speaking to the
next.
headset
This
part.
will segue into my next question. I have a few.
Okay,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
Speaking to the headset part, like I've always, I mean, I don't know if it exists or not, but like a year ago, I thought like when Cardboard was coming out, Google Cardboard, it's like if it's using the phone and like maybe the phone is the path to mass adoption for VR headsets. And yeah, like we need to improve the quality of the screens and all that before we get there. But what if like just like there's a phone case to have all your credit cards? What if there's a phone case that you could just open up, unfold, and put on your face and pass out in the VR space and do whatever you need to do? So like those tools, I mean those stepping stones will help us to get to mass adoption before we get to the full-on just regular-looking glasses that also in our VR. But yeah, that's like a possibility.
So basically now, one of the giants that has moved all this together forward, Facebook, has basically decided that social media is going to be the driving force between AR and VR, okay, and expenditures, right? Because again, and that's where they're putting their time in their mouth, their money. So what do you think of the implications and the possibilities for innovations and experience for people using this new medium? Is VR, AR, is this a social governance medium or an entertainment medium or both? And how do we navigate that?
I think it's definitely social. If you haven't tried Facebook Spaces, I highly recommend it. It is truly fantastic, and we live currently in the heart of entertainment, which at its core is about collaboration. Movies don't get made without at least a few people, and VR is going to definitely allow that social collaboration of basically creating the architecture of an experience become, I think, more possible, right? It's very difficult to have a writer translate a script to the director, who then has to translate to the actors, who then have to translate to screen and editing. And there are all these steps that are involved. But when you have something like, I really like actually Penrose Studios' creative collaboration software that they've showed off. You're able to do it all in real time together and build it together and
Sounds
see
like
it
you're
in
talking about the creation of a language.
creation of a language. So that's my 2 cents.
One of the funnest things that I ever do with my friends is going to Viso places, and they just show me their childhood home or their parents' home. It's like the simplest thing ever. It's just a 360 picture. But now they've overlaid, Wikipedia hotspots, and they've got the audio that may have been recorded there by the Google car at the time. It's the simplest thing, but it's extraordinarily emotional and powerful. I mean, my friend said, "You've got to come to the Azores and see the island where my Portuguese father grew up." And I said, yeah. And he showed it to me in Vegas, and I just was like, we have to go there tomorrow. This is the most beautiful. I understand now. And there's something to that as well. I feel like even the things that we have, we're not unpacking. We're so rushed to get to the Best Buy,
Quick comment, interesting, again, you're describing the, I think a Mad Men in the Carousel episode, that was the marketing and the selling of, the slide projector for the family home as a time machine. But more importantly, it was about, this is my life, come and see my life, view my life at home, in my private home, on my private slide machine, for my private friends and family. I asked the question again because this is now Facebook tracking in 3D, and this is why I'm also bringing now the social governance issue, past election year as well, is that are we now with a new medium into a new paradigm of just, is it entertainment? Are you entertaining your friends, or are you also tracking your friends? And who's doing this? So I throw that back just at the level of where anyone have thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, social is reality. It's a tool, but it's not the end game. And it's obviously going to be up to all of the people in this room how we use VR. as we move forward, and governments are going to have to get involved. It's an important thing. But how that happens remains to be seen. I think it's a great way to drive empathetic understanding of difficult situations for people. I don't think there's ever been a tool that is as effective as correctly produced and delivered VR to drive an empathetic response. Having said that, it can also be used for evil, and we need to be cognizant of that as well. So.
We had Steve Mann spearhead a town hall at VRTO in 2016, where we brought in people from the insurance world, from blockchain and every other sector you could think of, to ratify a code of ethics about human augmentation going forward. And he talked about not only surveillance, but surveillance, and the right to know that you're being recorded. And he said feedback denied, or feedback delayed is feedback denied. So if you don't know at the time that you're being recorded and in kind that you can have the right to record in return, then effectively there's a wrong going on. So yeah, we obviously have to explore those things, and we have to create limits and set boundaries on what those things will be, because to hear the marketing people talk, they say, this is a gold mine. I mean, we're going to know every single thing about this person. And my skin starts to crawl because of that. And I feel like I'm a little bit on the other
That's
side.
kind of why I brought the question into it. I mean, like I say, now one of the major drivers of the medium is pushing social media as opposed to, entertainment media, as opposed to medical simulation media. And so the heart of social media is the concept of, the people are the medium. Let's get to the... So just some more thoughts again, because this is, again, we already declared it a medium. We declared it a powerful medium. We declared now social, media as maybe one of the marketing, where most of the marketing and efforts going to go. And I heard the empathy machine mentioned. Maybe I'll just jump, because again, time is moving so quickly. It's 4:36 already. Into the next question from that is, let's ignore for a moment the issues of ethics in the AR/VR business. Okay, wink. Okay, let's just move away for a moment. I see the audience, some of the audience, some of the panel. Great. But let's talk about the idea of ethics within the VR, AR experiences. Presented with AIs, non-player characters, the users, control, virtual world creators, things like I say. Is it empathy, is it entertainment, or is it evil? If all three words come up here again. And just on the knowledge of, as we're world makers, we're universe makers now, we're playing these roles, where do you think, again, this idea of ethics, because I've heard the word empathy a million times, in VR conversations.
Yeah, well, I'm actually really curious to hear your answers as well on this. I mean, when I first looked into VR in 2015 through a cardboard box, I immediately knew that we would be facing addiction at some point, especially escapism addiction. And I don't think we've got an answer for that really in a long way, like a roundabout, holistic way of creating this media that could be pretty much everyone's dreams. And as creators, I know we take that very seriously, but I'm really curious, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's an age appropriateness as well that's going to have to come. MPAA type ratings that focus on sex and violence are one thing.
Very good point.
But taking this idea down to a 5-year-old and giving them sort of a brainwashing of here's the right idea and you should believe this for the rest of your life. We need to do a lot more research on the impact on children and other people as well who are adults, and how this can impact their cognitive sensibilities in the world, because we now know that virtual reality and augmented reality have the capability, if done correctly, to change the brain in ways that are remarkable. And that's both good, but it's also bad in some ways. So,
Go, please.
I'll take the other side of this discussion just for discussion's sake. So I think there's definitely that element of bad, but paper can be used for many things. It can be used to sign medical documents can be used to sign war documents. Same with the internet. It can be used to cyberbully. It can be used for Wikipedia and global information. The same is true for virtual reality, and it's due to the gradient of humanity. There are really good people. There are just absolutely horrible people, and that is almost unavoidable. I think there are things we can do to set up precautions, but I was watching R-rated movies when I was 10. Ratings, I think in the world that we live in today, they're going to have nominal effect, and the worst case is really people already die playing video games. So there's that fear of addiction, and that's a serious concern that needs to be considered at all times. But people die annually playing StarCraft. That is crazy, but it happens because it's a gradient. There are extremes on both ends. So.
StarCraft has been designed from the ground up to be as addictive as possible.
And I love that game very much.
See, that's what I mean. So World of Warcraft is, the latest installation of it. It was designed so you have to log in every day and you have to accumulate a certain amount of action points just to be able to keep playing with your friends. Some of these friends, for those people, are their entire social network. I know my brother is one of those people. And that is it. That's the entire emotional support structure that they have, and the only one that they relate to. So when you start to impose this daily kind of sort of servitude to the server, and you have to maintain it, that's extremely dangerous. I think you have to be careful about what you're... I mean, you could say, oh, well, sure, they could choose differently, but honestly, can they at a certain point?
But there's social upkeep, so that's what having friends is about. If you're not having to log in, you're having to text or hang out. There's a lot of things that have to be done to be a human being. And don't get me wrong, I think Warcraft definitely addictive as well. Also a great game.
I mean, sugar. I'm not even going to get into it. But the other thing about it too is like when you get into neuroplasticity with children below a certain age. I mean, what do I know what age that is? How do I know what someone's neuroplasticity is? But there is, maybe there needs to be some kind of a decompression chamber or a warning signal. Your house is on fire. You should probably pee now. Just something that is a safeguard that says like that's quite enough of that now, and we shouldn't prey on that. And we should at least be cognizant of it in some way, I think.
Clearly, as we move through and we begin tracking eye movements and how long you stare at a bottle of Coke or a Ford truck, and someone says, now generate this new ad for Ford truck and blink twice if you want to buy one next week or 3 times the week after. That kind of impact is already in the minds of the brands, and they're working feverishly to try to generate that content and get it out there. We heard already we have VR advertisements, but the big impact is coming from brand integration in ways that we're not going to be aware of. And then you add in the tracking aspects of it and capturing the human interaction, if you will, and creating that embodiment that doesn't leave your brain and you don't know whether it was real or not. That's a pretty serious space. We're in Big Brother territory, very definitely.
I would say that being on the creator side is much more comfortable than being on the user side. And less dangerous.
It's good to be
maybe.
The king.
It's good to be the king or the god. I think at some point VR, because right now VR is designed by the people who know how to design it. At some point, or how to create these worlds.
Supposedly.
Yeah, and at some point it's like what you see, on social media platforms right now. I mean, a lot more and more user-generated content.
The idea of user generation, the idea
this will also happen in VR.
What build the large platforms of networks is when you take the not even great tools, but allow everybody to make things in them. You get the feedback of the mass, and of course at that time, governance or anything like that is maybe too late, or education may be too late, which is, in terms of trying to at least, here's a gun, this is how it works, you can be responsible with it, or you can shoot yourself in the foot and never know the difference, and, so yeah. To see some other...
Jake?
No,
Are we going to talk about emergence and like how to use the emergent properties of this medium as well?
Actually,
Speaking of UGC, I'm just saying.
It's funny, I didn't go there. I took the flavor of the questions coming back, and we're already at 4:44. But I will so I'm going to give us a really, what's going to
Well, let's talk about it.
I just wanted to say that Daniel
Go for it.
Kenyon
Go for it.
has
Go for
made
it.
this really cool 360 piece where you're sitting in a wheelchair, you're coming out of cryogenesis, and you're being wheeled around and looking at your family a long time later. But they also discovered that there was actually a sort of neuroscientific examination and exploration there. And one of the things I think that's really fascinating about this is that we're going to see a lot of emergent things that are showing. They're teaching the teachers, once you get students in there, you get the UGC going, people are going to start to say, oh, I'm going to use this in a way that you never imagined before. It was the modding community and the hacking community that really moved a lot of these media forward, and we should consider that that's coming, and we have no idea what that's going to be.
That's true. I mean, again, as someone in history, Second Life and things like that, which were user-generated worlds, virtual reality, same thing. People don't know about Second Life, but it really was a prototype for all that's happening now. All the alt VRs and things all of them had 500,000 people or less globally doing this. It's actually happened before Second Life with Black Sun and other technology, Cybertown even years earlier, World of Warcraft. But Minecraft is really actually the largest one, and it was a toy. I mean, again, we're in digital Hollywood. The biggest house on the hill is not owned by a filmmaker. It's owned by the guy who made Minecraft. So the last question I actually had written here, which we'll get into here, which I liked, it was one of the things that came back in the emails, was using that term innovation, which was so given us so much in the title of the thing, is the nature of innovation, creative innovation versus technical innovation. Quickly, TED was originally technology, entertainment, and design. That these things have fallen off. I hear it in the intent that's coming from some of the conversations. The balance, the current state in VR, tools versus the imagination, distribution methods, brains versus brawn, which are your tools, the computers, people versus machines. Which one driving which in VR?
It's a chicken and egg question, but I believe that technology is so passé. It's always, especially for virtual reality, it's changing constantly, and the creative process has to overcome this, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to create something really exciting because it's already too late when
beta or obsolete.
Yeah, obsolete. Creativity, for me, and maybe it's my personal opinion, creativity is the driving force. Because imagination has totally no limits, the human imagination, and technology can make it happen. So as long as, as I mentioned just before, at some point, people will be able to create themselves their own VR environments and VR world, and then imagination will be the only limit, because it will be possible for everyone to do whatever they want.
That's now with web
Minecraft.
VR and a Matterport, you're there already.
Right. In some ways, it's already here. But
In Minecraft VR, you can create, I recreated my house in VR, and in using Minecraft, and walked into my room, I showed my wife, and she was like, oh wow, I walk upstairs, and she knew exactly where to go. But I think we're kind of already there in a clunky way, but surely it's coming in the next 5 years.
Louis, I just wanted to say Monica Bielski said that we have to stop thinking of technology as this gee whiz wow factor and think of it as very passé. That way we can look back on it and say, how would we have done it differently? How would you really make this pretty now or cool? We have to stop sort of sitting behind the technology and saying, wow, this is just so innovative and change is coming, and think of it as an old hat thing. So we could really actually innovate. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, no, actually going back to your statement about our 360, it's actually Randall Kleiser is the originator and creator, the auteur who created that. And Randall goes back a ways, and he actually wrote the story of DeFrost to get into film school, and he was in film school in the late 60s, 1970s. So it took him this long to innovate and conceptualize the design of how he would both direct and write. And then the cameras had to become available, and now we're looking at platforms, for instance, from Vroom, that can go local, wherever you are, and deliver an immersive experience. Where 2 years ago we didn't even talk about that. Where it's like someday this is going to happen, and now it's happening, and it's here, and there's a guy sitting right there that does it, and this is moving really fast. Moore's Law is going to go out the window. We're going to watch it in VR. And like you're saying, technology needs to become, hey, of course, it's second nature. We use it.
Yeah, we have to stop asking if it's going to happen. I mean, how much more proof do we need? Every single company that basically builds our daily lifestyle is 100% behind it right now.
As I said,
So
we all flew here
sure
on a
when-
plane or that was using this technology since the early 90s, late 80s,
The-
70s.
The real kind of step that I think we need to take is when is it going to be commercialized in such a way that it will begin to propagate so much content out there that we can't track it all. Right now we can all kind of know what are the top 10 experiences out there, what are the top 10 games, but I want to get to the point where discovery becomes the most important factor of this, and how do we commercialize it?
Yeah, well, as I said, if it's a medium, actually we've got 10 minutes, so I'm going to go right to questions in a second. But as I said, if it's a medium like television was a medium and still is a medium after the last 60 years, all of these issues of, technology doesn't really drive television anymore. It's been creative vision, that's been driving television. And, we are moving very fast. So as I said, we have about 10 minutes. Now we'll just open it up for everybody. I saw the first hand here.
So let's
Go for
talk
it.
about out of home. I want to hear from Jay. It was all over the internet about your $15 million, and I want to hear from Louis.
It's not mine.
And
Yes.
all of you. Okay, what are you guys doing?
I'll try and sum this up very quickly. But so we had a traveling carnival of the future, which is basically this idea of taking everything that you've already seen in a traditional carnival, updating it for the future with technology that's going to kind of reinvigorate play for the kids of tomorrow. What does my youngest brother want to do when they come to a carnival? And so it's transitioning that into a micro amusement park in Los Angeles. Now, what's a micro amusement park? Again, it's arena scale virtual reality. It's motion platform based virtual reality. We do things like narratively driven story rooms, which is an escape room that is based on story, right? That requires social collaboration to complete it rather than, hey, something Egyptian themed. We have hieroglyphics over here. We've got tomb over here. Everyone disperses. This is about everyone coming together, solving the puzzles, dynamically changing the narrative depending on how you solve those puzzles. So you get a different story every time, branching narrative effectively, through to a lot of things that are way above my pay grade and way above my knowledge level. But that's kind of like a quick sampling, if that's helpful.
When and where is it?
Yep, so that's, we are looking at early next year for launch, and that's going to incorporate kind of like, there's going to be sort of soft launch. They'll have, bring in developers. We want this to be an active maker community, which is kind of how we came up originally, is everyone can't have a $25,000 motion platform at their disposal. But we want to invite developers to come into the shop, see all the toys, use those toys to create the future of fun.
And for us, we already have like a few sites that belong to us and are operated by us. On top of that, we are partnering with a company which aggregates all our aggregates all the existing VR location location-based sites in the world. And this platform will actually launch in a week time. You can already have a glimpse on Room on our website because we already have a map of these location-based sites all over the world. We already have registered, it's not launched yet, but you can already have access to more than 200. We give information to people to know where they can experience VR near their home, physically experience it, because I totally agree. Trying VR is adopting it, and this is one of our missions too, to educate the people to tell them where they can try it. And we are including China very soon, so there will be about 10,000 location-based sites where that will be registered, where you can access, and we actually are informing people where they can actually try VR, and we also at the same time growing our own network and consolidating the networks, the other location-based VR sites that exist in the world, so that we can actually have a bigger platform and start to talk about scale which is very important in terms of distribution, and which can actually like help the developers get more content in front of more people.
So are you going to get to go to sites and experience VR with or without headsets? I'm trying to get a sense of the side of the network that explains it all online.
So online, you have a world map where you can actually see where all the physical experiences can be done, and there are a lot of different and all the information related, like what kind of content you can have there, and what kind of equipment you will be using, and what's the price, what are the times, etc. So it's just like an informative platform. But it's all aggregated, which allows people, I mean, one of the things we didn't talk about today, what is really hindering the VR adoption is actually the lack of information and the lack of relevant information.
45 minutes. So, yeah, no, great. I agree. Question over there.
Yes. Speaking back again to VR marketing, is there anything that you would change about how VR components or experiences or events are reported on news sites to the masses? Would it be that VR news sites, tech news sites, or even entertainment sites that aren't really used to talking about VR but would like to?
Stop recapping the history of virtual reality at the start of every article. Seriously, it's every single article. So I think that really impacts how far people read to get to the relevant information.
And stop getting pictures of it from Pond 5. Please.
Yeah,
No people with open mouths.
To extend on both of those ideas, which are actually totally true, is start talking about the content itself and the stories, because I think that's where you're going to get people like, I got to try that. That is so awesome. Flying on a dragon was something that a VC said to me last year. He goes, now that's cool. I want to fly on a dragon. If we talk about that content in the context of people using it, I think that's what we want to see. How is this stuff used? What is the application?
Critical voices are needed.
Another question? Is that it? Oh, there we go.
When am I going to be able to use it and not get sick?
That's it, right?
I think that I'm a very sensitive VR user. I think that there's some experiences that are better suited, and that you kind of know what you're getting into. I think that Oculus has started to help with that. They say this is a medium experience, or this is a mild comfort experience, or whatever the case may be. That kind of rating to me is more significant than whether it should be restricted or not. I think it should say if you're very sensitive, this is going to cause some trouble.
Yeah. Last night, he's left now, but Ted Shilowitz talked about his company Hype VR, which was one of the most remarkable platforms I've personally seen so far, which incorporates a compositing engine to bring photogrammetry in so that the close-up, you don't have that parallax issue. Somebody asked me that before, and I gave him a smart answer. I said, after 2,000 hours of watching it, so start now and finish that 2,000 hours. Your mind, if you start and it's wrong, it's not going to get better. That's the main thing. So we got to do it right, and the technology is coming out now that's doing it right.
I was going to say haptics are all haptic experiences, so adding physical sensation to the digital experience helps a lot with that. But I do think we've, a large part, moved past motion sickness. Like, it still happens in movies. My girlfriend recently we watched Hardcore Henry, which I think is as close analogy you're going to get for film to VR, and that made her wildly ill. So it's going to happen regardless of medium. I think we've gone over the massive hump of that already.
I don't know, the Harry Potter ride just made it so sick.
That put my girlfriend down, yeah.
Well, there are a lot of seniors that use VR and use it simply, so it isn't a matter of age. It really, I think it has to do with some other factors, and that's the cognitive neuroscience aspect.
Interestingly, the 5Rs audience skews towards boomers. Most of our ticket buyers are 50 plus.
That's interesting. Go ahead.
I got another question. So what
I
about
got you
film
next.
for Alzheimer's?
There was research on that. I don't know it, but there was something going on with, they were sort of allowing you to rebuild certain pathways.
Yeah, personally, we actually have a couple of neuroscientists on our advisory, and these guys they're wild in their speculation on the impact of AR and VR on human brain development and the impact on everything from PTSD to Alzheimer's to simply losing weight, retraining yourself to eat right, things like that.
Neuro-linguistic programming.
Thank you. That was actually
Yeah.
my question as well. Just wondering about like how deep is the rabbit hole for being able to use VR to heal yourself or heal your brain, or like is there actually a limit, you think, or are we just scratching the surface right now?
The limit is never going to be achieved because singularity will happen at some point if we get that close.
Read Stéphane Bouchard or Skip Rizzo, obviously, or Walter Greenleaf at Stanford. They've all got 25 years of research, at least each, on that alone. That's what got me into it. The mental health, the prescribable, like getting rid of the opioids, SSRIs, making it prescribable is like my giant MO for why I'm
I'll
into
throw
it.
out a little humanist black flag,
Yeah.
black mirrors. Again, of course, I mean, part of all that's driving this and the technology and the push toward the singularity is, it's the merging of machine and man. And as man becomes more machine and machine becomes more like man. But if you're talking about mental illness in man, with all eventually mental illness in machine may just be as real. And at the same time, these tools will obviously be merging it all together, so that it's obvious that the technologies will possibly be able to help with the human mind, because then again the human mind is becoming much closer to that machine mind, and where will be the help? I mean, we're getting to the end. I'll just comment about technology versus creative, which is a question I liked, which is the human condition versus the technology one, is that machine scale and human scale have never been the same, but we're all driving it to become the same. And kind of this social malaise that we have with media today is kind of that we're out of sync, just because of the nature of both mediums, the human medium and the technological digital medium. So maybe we'll figure out good ways of using one to aid the other, and maybe, or we may find ourselves in some quagmires, who knows? But, that's why I think we got a little deeper in this panel. They asked to go deep. Did we dive deep enough within an hour? I had your question there, but we couldn't get there about the innovation and technologies.
There's a recursion, too. I just want to say, like, when Google looks at DeepMind and what the AI is teaching them about, it can do what a brain could never do 6,000 times over. And once it does it 6,000 times, you say, oh, wow, that's a much better way to do it, or think about it. So that AI is teaching us back how to actually hack our own brains and do things better and not
It
be
does
as...
it in a controlled or faster mechanism. Not that I can sit here and be Bart Simpson and write 6,000 times on the blackboard. I will not be an idiot, or I will be a good boy. Yeah. The computer will do it. The machine will do it much faster. The question is, what happens when
Well, on the 6,000th time, it may have an emergent discovery that says, actually, I can now tell you that this is a much better way to...
That's been the hope for... That's what Homer's been hoping Bart would do. Well, the teacher hopes Bart does that, has an emergent behavior on the 6,001st time, and now he's a good boy. But he just doesn't want to do it.
It's a question of whether when you put a brain into the VR and it starts to go back and forth that way, whether that will actually make a change, or whether we're just implicitly going to be stuck with our human nature and we're just bending it a little bit.
Well,
it's only human nature as long as we're human.
Exactly.
Well, that's the singular.
And on that note.
And on that.
I guess we're done.
30 years, Weber comes along and that, like...
Yeah.
Well, they had this conversation before TV was invented, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Probably the same fear and
Actually,
positivity.
one for a dead author, E.M. Foster's The Machine Stops, 1909. It was the first virtual reality novel. Forget Ready Player One, Neil Stephenson. Forget Bradbury Heinlein. He beat them all by 100 years. It's all because he was basically didn't think that H.G. Wells or Jules Verne had a clue about what the human condition was. And in 100 pages, I think he summed up everything. Try it, read it.
Awesome.
Great for everybody coming out. Thank you very much all. And we're out of here.